HDMI?
It's on now.
Okay, it's on now.
Was it?
Are we doing that?
It wasn't on?
Actually, it should be on.
Alright, well. Do we have sound now?
Should have.
No, we don't.
Go.
Alright,
So restart.
we'll try this again. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our first ever edition of Alton R4 Teacher Spotlight. Today we have Miss Little as our guest, and we're very excited to have her. She's been an educator, librarian in Alton for 52 years, which is a long time and a lot of dedication. So I'm going to ask you this question again. What inspired you to be an educator, and what's been keeping you going for so long?
Well, I guess the importance of education was stressed upon our family, by my mom especially, and so I can remember that I was going to be a teacher from before I even started, because Mom, as I said, is that we had a wood stove and I'd be there while she was cooking, and she would say, okay, she would teach me my ABCs and numbers and stuff before I started at school. So just that was what I wanted to do and I did decide between being an English teacher and a coach, because my coach that I had, because I played sports, and she wanted me to be a coach, and my English teacher wanted me to be an English teacher. So I decided that that's what I would do, is to be so that's what my major was English. And so whenever I did my student teaching at West Plains in English, there wasn't an opening here at Alton at the time either, and I had minored in library science. So anyway, they had an opening up at West Plains, and they had run off, students had 3 librarians before me. So one had even left in the middle of the year, I believe. So anyway, so I accepted the librarian position up there, and so that's where I was up at West Plains for 3 years before and then they had my librarian here that I had whenever I was in school. She retired, and so I took her place, and but she was such a nice lady, and I really cared for her, and so that was another reason to be able to do the library job. So.
Have you ever, been offered a position anywhere else, like in between your time here? Has anybody ever tried to get you to come over their school?
Well, I actually taught college English for Mountain View at SBU at Mountain View, and then I also taught for MSU in West Plains. And but of course my family was here, and I would have never considered. Now, whenever I was getting my degree, I really wanted to move to Springfield, because that's where I got my undergrad, was at MSU in Springfield. But my husband already had a job here, so that's why we stayed here. So
that's awesome.
But,
what have you kind of learned over the years being an educator? What's something that you've experienced that has taught you a lot, and what is something that you've seen change as well? Because I know, 52 years, a lot's happened in history especially, but what is something that you've seen that you've learned and something that's changed?
Well, of course, we learn every day and everything, but I guess you have to learn to work with others, and you have to be consistent. That's one of the things that I think that I learned, is that you have to be consistent, and students will really recognize that. If you're consistent and have expectations for them, they will do if you expect, if you're consistent. Now, if you're one day you're doing, okay, you can do this, the next day you do that. And I don't really know, the changes as far as, I think that technology has been the biggest change. But as far as students go, I think basically, they're the same. It's just that today, since we have social media and all the access to that it has changed, especially in the library, about reading and things. You still have your students that love to read, and that just makes me so happy. But they're still back, several years ago, you didn't have all those options that you have now, as far as, being on your phone or whatever. And so, but you still, I mean, through the years, it's just, I think that's just the way it is, you know. And we really have, through the years, I've been blessed to have, we really have good students here. You know, we still have those yahoos or whatever, but,
yeah.
you know, overall, and that's one of the things that I don't think I've ever experienced a student very often ever not showing me respect. And I think that's an asset that you have in a smaller school a lot of times. And because, you know, I've been sponsors for about everything, you know, through the years. And when we would take students somewhere and, you know, we'd usually, you know, say they're well behaved and everything. So, and I think that's a product of being in there, in the school. But one of the things too, as I grew up, because I was involved in, I enjoyed school, but I was involved in extracurricular activities. I was in volleyball, I played softball, I was in band, I did plays, all of that, you know. And I tell students today when they say, you know, I hate school, and I said, well, you know, I said if I hadn't been involved in the extracurricular activities in school, I probably wouldn't have liked it either, because I think that's where your bond grows. And as being a sponsor, especially with the senior sponsor that I had, you really get to know the students, and I really enjoyed, you know, being around them and stuff. And of course, another thing with me is that I've had the privilege of getting to know students well, because even now I have 6th through 12th, you know, that's what I have beforehand. So I get to know them 6, 7 years, and it's not like I have them 1 year and then they're gone and I never know. And I still today, going through all of these 50 years, that I will recognize. Now, I may not remember their names as such, but since I had them so long, is that I still recall, you know. And of course, I'm like the, if they need anything to know back in the day, they usually come to me.
Yeah.
And I usually know the students. I mean, you know, if I see their face, oh yes, I, you know that and
Yeah.
stuff. And so that's sort of an asset too, when you've been somewhere for so long, that you get to know, you know, all of the students. And it really, whenever I see them out and things and how they've done, if they've done well or whatever they've done in life, it's good for them to recognize, oh, hi, Miss Little, or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So that's really good.
Yeah. When my dad graduated in '05, he said that you had been teaching there for about just over 30 years, I think he had said. And then when my grandparents were in school, and granted, my grandparents are pretty young. They're in their 60s almost. But still, you had been there teaching. You were there as their librarian or as their teacher. So it's just kind of cool to see, you know. And I'm sure many people in this town can, you know, say, "Oh well, I had her as my teacher too," and it's,
Right.
you know, it's great. And does that make you, like, you know, happy knowing that you've had such an impact on everybody, that people have grown to respect you so much because not just that you've been here so long, but because you've done so many good things?
Well, I mean, I'm very happy, you know, to be a part of a positive life for anyone, you know. So yes, it does. And I think that's one of the things, the joys that you get of being a teacher. And I don't know if people realize that or not. If you go into this field, that how many people or students that you can have an influence on, you know, because I still have people that come back and will mention something about, well, you know, you did this for me or whatever, and you just don't realize, you know, that you have had, you know. And I'm sure that there's some that could say, well, I had this, you know, you got on to me in the library, and that's true, because I've been very I guess you'd say strict in my expectations, you know. If you come in, and I've always told students, I said, if I say that if you do so and so, this will be the consequence, and I said, that will happen. And that's the way I've always been, you know, because to me, if you say something and say, okay, if you do this, this is going to happen, and then it never happens, if you don't have the consequence, then, you know, really, why did you even say it? So, but I'll just have to, I was thinking of what I might say or whatever, but I said I'd like to share a few of the fun things that, especially on the senior trips, that we've done. And that was one of the things. I think I was a senior sponsor for around 13 years, something like that. And I took a group to Dallas, Texas, and we went to Chicago, and we were in Colorado Springs, and of course, and several times in in Florida and Alabama, and Gatlinburg. But I've gone whitewater rafting, but the first time that we went whitewater rafting in Gatlinburg is that the auto mechanics boys wanted the 3 sponsors to go in their raft, you know. So, okay, so we get in, and we're going down here, and we're going over rapids and things, and all of a sudden, we flip. And every one of us went out the raft except for one student and the one that was doing the rowing, you know, the one that was there. So we didn't even realize, or I didn't even realize what had happened, is that I kept thinking, I was here in the water and I was trying to get up to the top, and the one that was in, that didn't get thrown out, he come over and said, "Come on, Mrs. Little," and he draws me in, you know, and I said, "I'm glad that they don't have phones and stuff today." Like, I mean, back then that we did, because I said that would have been quite a sight for me to be pulled in.
Yeah.
And, but anyway, but those were really good times because you got, you know, to know the students and stuff. But that was one of them. And then the other one was that whenever we were in Colorado Springs, I went whitewater rafting up there at that time, and we had to wear those wetsuit type things up there because we did the Colorado River. And I said, you could imagine us, we girls were all in sort of like a tent type things, and here we are trying to pull on our wetsuits. And that would be another thing. But anyway, then the next time that we went, there was some of the students that didn't want to go. So they drop us off, and I can't remember which, but they went whitewater rafting. And I took some of the students that didn't want to go. We went to Tailwell. So I walked the streets of this with these students and went in, and I had to watch one of the students get a tattoo. Now that was not fun, watching all of that stuff. And I said, I don't know why anybody would want to be in that pain. But anyway, but yes, we just had some. And when we went to Chicago, we had a lot of fun up there, and you know, just we got to see the Blue Man Group and things. So I was able to do a lot of stuff with them.
That's kind of what school's about, is having fun before you get out in the real world, I guess.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But anyway, it's been I just can't believe it's been that long, and
do you have any specific, like, favorite moments in your entire career, like in anything? Like, is there anything that, you know, a story that kind of stands out to you that was probably one of your favorite times?
Oh, I will tell you one of the favorite times, and it was our students that did it, actually. There's many things, but during lunch, I had this group, class of 95 or 90, probably 96. They would come in, and I'd be working. Of course, the library's always been open all day. I've never had now that I'm working part-time it is. But anyway, so what they would do, there was 3 boys, a couple of girls or whatever, and they would come in and they'd creep in and stuff and then try to scare me. And they did this all the time, and we just had just a fun thing. But I think really the ones that stands out is the ones that whenever I see the students do, you know, whenever they've come up, they've done well and things. So I think it all centers around that. And I've really been blessed with good coworkers and things. You know, we've had a lot of good times that we've had, and I think that makes it and admin too. You know, administration. So I was trying to think if there was anything else. But
you've probably, being here for so long, you've seen so many students come through, so many different teachers and admin come through and stuff, and so I bet you that's probably, you know, been something that you've just been like, oh, well, yeah, I've been here for X amount of students, and, you know, and so you've seen it all, I'm sure. You've probably, is there any advice out of all your experiences that you would give to another, you know, educator, maybe a young teacher that just started, maybe an aspiring teacher, maybe somebody that has been here for a longer time but wants to, you know, keep going? Or is there anything you would tell them?
Well, as I've mentioned before, I think the big thing is that you've got to show your students that you care. Now, you can't be their friend. You know, they've got to have that respect for you. And I think a lot of times as a young teacher that starts out, that's a little issue for them because, you know, they want to be liked, but you can't be a student's friend, you know, and because what ends up that they don't have respect for you because they feel like that they can be on the same level as you, and that's the case. And the other thing, as I mentioned before, is you've got to be consistent. You've got to be consistent. And, but showing those students that you care, and I pray that I've always done that. Now, you know, we have our days, we teachers do, everyone does, and there may be times that someone, you know, that maybe I didn't express that I needed to. But the key is, you know, to care. You've got to know that you care. You like to have, you know, you love your job. Now, well, you know, like we have days, you know, it's like, well, but anyway, but you have to, because I think that reflects, I think our students are very perceptive, and they can pick up if you really don't care for your job. So you've got to want to be a teacher, and you know, there's a lot of heartaches and a lot of headaches, but anyway, I just those are some of the things that I think that you can make you successful. And I've never ever had any trouble with discipline. But my boys say, Mom, all you have to do is look at them. And you know, you got that look.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, my mom gives me that look sometimes. But do you think that, or well, I guess I should say is I've seen teachers in my past or even currently that you could just always tell that they love what they're doing. Like you said, you can always tell that they're not something that they're just doing just so they can coach sports or whatever, or something that they're doing just because they didn't know what else they wanted to do with their lives. They sincerely do it because they like teaching. They love teaching. They love to help kids. And I certainly think that that's how you are, and I think a lot of teachers notice that, and I think that's, you know, that's important, and that's why you're respected so much. And so,
Thank
you know,
you. I appreciate it.
That's really great.
But and as we talked before, when you come to me to ask about this, I said, yes, I'm old, so you can, I can be the first one that you can be on there. But, you know, the past year or so, you know, but that I do feel like that I can't do, you know, what I used to do. And, and I will tell this funny story, too, and then I'm sure that we probably need to sign off here. But is that a couple of years ago, of course, I haven't been, you know, senior sponsor because I said, well, you know, it needs to be taken over by some younger ones. Well, then I think it was 2 years ago, someone had mentioned to me, said, Miss Little, I think you need to be the senior sponsor. And I said, well, I think I'm getting a little old. And whenever I cannot dance on the tables, I said, then I probably don't need to be sponsored because I did that. And the students just, I mean, the other sponsor and I, we were down in, what's that one in Florida that's something?
Is it Destin?
Yes, but that restaurant that you can dance on the tables that the, oh, anyway, so we were back there and we did, we got up and the kids just, it was so funny. But, you know, I always enjoyed being a part of it and doing everything that, you know, the students did, so, but anyway.
Is there anything you would tell any student watching right now? I mean, I know that, like, students, like you said earlier, students pick up on things, and, you know, is some students, I know, want to be teachers. You know, some students don't want to be teachers. They don't want to go back to school. They don't want to go to college, whatever. In a general overall advice, what is one thing that if you got to tell a student, just as a piece of life, you know, advice, what would you tell them?
Well, you know, I think I would say that, you know, if you want to serve people, if you like to, and that's the key to me too, is that and that's the librarian, you know, I'd say, okay, you could be a librarian if, you know, but you get to serve others. And if you have that in your heart that you would like to do that, I think teaching is one of the best things. Even though that guidelines and restrictions that are on teachers now that I didn't have when I first started, because there's so many other things that they have to do paperwork-wise and stuff like that. But I think that if you have that we need those teachers. And I know a lot of them are going away from it and that they're burnt out and things, but yeah, that's what I would say, because if you really don't have that, then you probably need to go into another field. But every field, no matter what you go into, it has its downside. There's nothing
Yeah.
perfect in this world. But to make a difference, if you think that, it's a reward to be able to come and know that you've made an impact in some way on others.
Yeah. So I guess that just leads me into my final question: is what kind of legacy are you hoping to leave behind at the school, in the whole, and I mean the entire school district, the community, your family, friends? What kind of legacy do you try to leave as you continue to educate and teach?
Well, I pray that my legacy is that I was a person that cared and that I was willing to serve others, and I have these that was in school here, and they'll say, "Mrs. Little, are you still at that school?" And I laugh and and say that, and they said, "Well, So one day I was laughing with one of them, and they said, "Well, what would they need to do is just enshrine you at that library." And I said, "Yeah, they could give me a casket put in there in the middle of the library, and I'd be here forever."
Oh man, I'd say maybe a statue or something. Have you up in here?
Oh goodness. Well, anyway, but it's been. I mean, I don't know. I mean, at any time that I decide that I can't do the job, then I'll retire completely. I don't know when that is.
Well, hopefully it's not for a very long time.
Well, it probably will whenever you get to the age that I am. Which, age has never bothered me. I can tell my age. I'm 76. So, it's...
Well, I didn't want to ask that because it's not polite, but
it's
it's a good
fine.
thing we know now.
Yeah,
How,
I'm 76.
wow, that's awesome. Since you're a librarian, I got to ask you, what's your favorite book of all time that you've ever read?
Oh, my. Goodness. I don't know if I've got a particular one. I think I'll put it in this. I like historical fiction, and especially in the Holocaust era. Those are my books
Yeah.
that, but as far as one particular one, I just don't know. I think it would be that field.
Yeah, I'm sure you've read tons and tons and tons
Well,
of them.
since I have to read close to 100 books every year,
Oh.
see, I have to read all these.
Yeah,
As
that's...
they come in, or most of them. So,
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, thank you very much for sitting down and doing an interview with us.
well, quite welcome. I enjoyed it, and
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
enjoyed it very much. Thank you very much.
We went a long time, didn't we?
You did, that's okay. Wait, we can't stop it